Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shamika and this is Check the Rhymes. I am so hyped. Well, of course, because you guys are here, but because it is football season. And if you couldn't tell, I used to be a cheerleader. And if I had my pom-poms, I'd be shaking them right now. Anyway, today's show is an exciting one because joining me today, I have Liz Loza, and she is one of the industry's leading fantasy sports experts. She writes about fantasy sports for Yahoo Sports, and she's also a cast member on Fantasy Football Live, which is on Yahoo Sports, and they air every Sunday, 90 minutes before kickoff. So you don't want to miss this show because she's going to give us some tips on how to fill out those brackets so we can win. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining me today on Check the Rhymes. I am super hype about today's show. Tell me, it's football is going to look, I feel like, a little bit different this year just because of the pandemic. Do you have any predictions?
Well, I predict that we cannot have predictions in this year because you're right. Everything is unknown. I mean, how unprecedented. We are going to play contact NFL football whilst enduring a global pandemic. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this one coming, but I do think
right.
Right. I do think if we can glean some silver linings, it's that we're going to find some players that maybe were unexpected, some players that were under the radar who get to step up potentially and be heroes, because we all know that the NFL is a next man up league. Well, there's going to be a lot of men up, I'm assuming. And so despite the fact, though, I have to say the NFL has done an excellent job in containing this, and there have been very few positive cases. So, at a minimum, nothing will change, and at a maximum, we get to find some players that were from the practice squads who have an opportunity to flash. So I don't really see anything, horrible about what can happen. There's nothing horrible about football. It's one of the best things, and if you need a distraction, my goodness, this is a great one.
Exactly. So, fantasy football. What kind of advice do you have for people like myself that have never, I've filled out a bracket maybe once, and I just kind of randomly picked people because I didn't know how to really fill out my bracket. So do you have any advice about how to fill out that bracket and make sure that you come out on top?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing you need to do is download the Yahoo Fantasy app, because that is where my colleagues and I are working on written content, video content, podcasts. We have a podcast 5 days a week. It's called the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast. Every day gets you ready for whatever is coming next, whether it's waivers, and you're going to have to be working the waiver wire quite a bit this season if players do end up on the COVID-19 list. And then we also have rankings. So if you're like, I don't know which of these two players to start, you can look at our rankings and say, well, this player's ranked a little bit higher than this one. I'm going to go with that guy. And we also have Fantasy Football Live, which is our flagship show. I'm very proud to be a cast member on it. We start 90 minutes before kickoff every Sunday. So 90 minutes before kickoff, it is completely live. You can watch it via the Yahoo Fantasy app. And this year, because of COVID and various protocols, it's a totally virtual set. Everybody's working from home. So, there should be some unexpected bloopers in that too, which is always fun.
Oh, of course. That seems to be the new norm of you never know what's going to happen. Speaking of football too, you never know what's going to happen with either thing, virtual shows or football. So I'm in the Carolinas, and so obviously I am a Carolina Panthers fan. Do you have any predictions or thoughts about how the team will fare this year without Cam Newton as the quarterback?
I think it's a very interesting question because Matt Rule, the new head coach, is one of these maverick-type players coming from BYU, which he was able to do with that program, turn everything around and maybe take some players who were not some of the top scouted players out of high school, but he turned them around and made a really winning program in a very short amount of time. And that's basically what he's going to try to do in Carolina. He has a very long contract, so he has a nice runway. And the defense is devoid of playmakers, but you still got Christian McCaffrey, who's the #1 overall pick in every single fantasy draft. I don't want to hear where some draft said, no, I took Saquon, but no. CMC is the #1 pick in every fantasy draft. He's obviously a playmaker. Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is a better quarterback than people have given him credit for. He did fill in admirably for Drew Brees last season and won every single game he started during that effort. And then I think you've got DJ Moore, and now you have Robbie Anderson, who has some some history with Matt Rule because of his time at Temple. So I think that there are some pieces there, but this is going to be a reboot of a season. This is going to be a building year, so it's not going to be pretty, but you're working towards something, and you have a coach who has a history of doing that excellently.
Okay, awesome. I can't wait to see what they do out there on the field. So I have a really tough question for you, Liz, and I don't know, this might kind of throw you off a little bit. But what are your must-have snacks when you watch football?
Must-have snacks. Oh my goodness. Well, I love peanuts, so Planters peanuts is always something that I love chomping on. I also love buffalo wings, and don't tell my 6-year-old and my 3-year-old, but we are definitely ordering pizza tonight to watch football because Mama doesn't want it. Mama's working too hard today. She's not going to cook,
right.
So we're having pizza with our NFL viewing tonight.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Liz, for the great tips. I'm going to fill out my bracket as soon as I get off the set. So thank you again for joining me, and we will be tuned in to Yahoo Sports Live on Sunday.
Thank you so much. Have a great football season.